What's up out there, Junkie Nation? It is your boy Kenshiro. We're back with another great episode of Cultural Junkies Live. Today's show, we're going to get a little insight into the mind of the film critic with our special guest, Don Shanahan, who is a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic and the founder of the review blog Every Movie Has a Lesson. We'll get to Don in a second, but let me introduce my fellow junkies who's going to be on the show with me today. Sitting to my right, as always, is the great Adakuji. What's up, my friend? How's the Lego building going?
I didn't finish my Black Lion before.
So sad. The biggest and the best line. Sitting across from me is the dapper one, GQ.
Now is not the time for fear. That comes later.
And from remote, we've got Fallen Marvel.
Hello, everyone. Hope y'all having a good evening tonight.
We are so far.
We're here.
And Manny the controls back behind the board is the returning Adobo girl. How you doing?
Hey. Okay.
Good to see you. All right. If this is your first time joining us on Culture Junkies Live, thank you very much for choosing to spend your evening with us. For the first 45 minutes, we'll be talking to Don and about a whole bunch of other stuff, movies and stuff like that. But the last 15 minutes is going to be yours, and the power is yours segment where we talk about anything under the sun. You can ask Don, what it is like to be a Rotten Tomatoes critic, or you can ask him the formula for world peace. He probably doesn't have that, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. And also let me run it down how the
I was writing down the formula. I had it.
All right, good. I got you.
Yeah,
That's good. So let me also impart to you how the show is going to work. So over on my right shoulder, we got our follower goal meter, where once you hit the meter, you'll open up a eligible prize from GQ's treasure chest, which could be a Blu-ray, could be a collectible, could be a video game. Who knows? So invite all your friends to come back to Culture Junkies on Twitch and give us some follows. And this meter over here on my left shoulder is the Extra Life meter, where you can extend the show by 15 minutes just by filling it with the bits that you donate during the show, like Wolverine Solid X did a little bit earlier. Without further ado, let's hit a few brief topics and run the gamut before we get to our guest, Don Shanahan. So obviously Evo happened this weekend. A couple of things came out of there. One of them being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going to be doing a crossover with Street Fighter 6. Only a world tour mode, which I guess really shouldn't surprise anybody. Was this original movesets or
Nope. All
what?
they are
Just
avatar costumes that, if you do the math for the fighter coins, is about $15 per costume. Little bit high.
It's kind of steep.
For something that you can only really use in one mode. And
That's kinda
their
steep.
masks, you can purchase their masks separately as well. And I think that was about $5.
But you can't use them in Versus or
No.
Battle
The
Hub
only
or none
thing
of
you
that.
can use them for is like Battle Hub. Thank you. Avatar battles for Battle Hub. You can wear your turtle costume for your avatar there, but you're not going to get like Ryu cosplaying as one of the turtles.
What?
Nope.
That's lame.
Nope. It's all World Tour Battle Hub.
That's lame. Who wants to do that? That's lame.
Hey.
Also coming out of Evo, a couple of other things. One of them, 2 characters for Tekken. One of them, a returning Raven, Master Raven. I mean,
No, Master Raven is the girl.
Master Raven's the girl. Sorry.
Just Raven.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting Raven, and we're also getting a brand new character from Peru, a young lady named Azucena. Azucena. She's apparently she's trying to spread the awareness of her coffee bean brand.
Well, not only that, she's also a very interesting, almost amalgamation of a couple of characters. She dances similar to Lucky Chloe in a lot of her movements.
Mm-hmm.
She looks kind of like Josie Rizal, and then she kind of has a body structure like Katarina. So it makes people wonder, are they going to drop those other characters?
Okay.
In terms of having just her now.
All right.
So,
Well,
be interested to see.
I guess there's that. And lastly, out of Evo, over the weekend, we're getting a brand new Fatal Fury, a sequel to Mark of the Wolves, which, I mean, about time. A lot of people say that Mark of the Wolves was one of SNK's finest games. And for them to take, what has it been, 15 years? Since Mark of the Wolves?
Like longer than that.
It's been more like 20.
20 years? Took them 20 years to make a follow-up. I guess better late than never. I guess better late than never. So I'm happy. I'm excited. Dido, you're excited too, right?
Well, I would be, but I haven't really picked up a fighting game in quite some time, so it's kind of like it's there. And if I mean, I like the idea that there's a new one, but I don't know if I'm gonna get it now because I haven't touched a fighting game. Oh, it's been a while now.
Okay.
I can tell you.
I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, y'all. That's enough for the topics of the day. Let me introduce you all to Mr. Don Shanahan. Don is the creator of Every Movie Has a Lesson and one of the founders of the Chicago Indie Critics, an organization dedicated to bringing wide-ranging experiences, backgrounds, tastes, diversities, and target audiences together across print and online platforms. Don has also been a published film critic on Film Obsessive, Medium, and the now defunct Examiner.com. Don's secret identity is as a K through 8 teacher. We were talking about a little bit briefly earlier in the pre-show for the youth of the city of Chicago, and he is a family man to a wife and 2 young, beautiful children. Don, welcome to Culture Junkies Live. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience. I know this has been months in the waiting, and it's just damn glad to be here. Yeah, and what better way to spend Wednesday night? Just to talk shop and get something going. Happy to be here.
Indeed. So, Don, tell us about Every Movie Has a Lesson. What was the underlying philosophy behind that name?
So I was that dork in college and in high school that was kind of the, the film critic for your, for your school newspaper. And, I had a good time with that, like anybody does, doing either the newspaper club or the elective in college. I knew back then I'm 44 here in August, where I went to school in like undergrad, like in 97 to 01, where even then I knew journalism wasn't really going to be like a good major. You can kind of see the early signs, early signs that was going to be kind of a dying medium because online was showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was an elementary education major and became a teacher. And for the first, for about the first 7-8 years of being a school teacher, I went to movies and I turned into a fan, but I didn't really write. I got to a point where I found Facebook like in 2009, 2010, I think about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And, back then, the first people you kind of find on Facebook are your old college and high school classmates, or at least that's how it turned out.
Yeah.
And a bunch of my buddies are like, Don, you still do the movie stuff? I'm like, yeah, I still kind of, I collect movies. I go to movies and do all that. But they're like, Don, do you still write? I'm like, no, man, I haven't written anything since I saw you last in college. And they're like, you should, man, you should start a blog. And at that point, I'm like, what's a blog? So I got talked into a blog, and at that point, I had been kind of so immersed in being a school teacher where I needed kind of something, I don't know, a different kind of niche, a different kind of angle than just being, at the movies with Don.
Right.
Where what's another hook I can kind of put to this that kind of is something different, something reflective, and matches what I do for a career. So I kind of sat down and I'm like, what if I can kind of pin and show the life lessons you can learn in a movie, from the serious to the farcical? Like, hey, blonde girl, don't go down the hallway when, someone else goes down the hallway. Or, man versus nature, like serious ones and silly ones. So I kind of rolled the idea in my head of the idea of like every movie to me. And I kind of believe that as a school teacher too, when I bring movies into the classroom, like every movie out there somewhere, even the worst, crappiest ones, can teach you something. So I'm like, and it had a nice ring to it. So I'm like, I started a good old fashioned Google Blogger. I started Every Movie Has a Lesson. I found a place to get published, kind of like as a, kind of a community thing with that Examiner.com stuff for a long time. You can kind of be your little local reporter for whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of went away because Examiner kind of died
right
on its own death. And I just kind of went back to being just kind of self-published. By that point, I'm like, I should make this classier than Blogger. I should turn this into my own site, so, go rent a domain, go to Squarespace, make a site, make it a little prettier than just being a blogger. By that point, I've been in Chicago enough years where I kind of, an Examiner helped out a little bit before they went under about, getting into some more early screenings, or I found that advancedscreenings.com kind of underworld of getting to movies earlier, getting to movies for free, and then getting your coverage out there, at least kind of publishing something a little more current and for real. And at that point, I met a few more people, saw a few more common faces, and kind of cracked into the press credential thing of who to talk to, how to apply. And by the time I kind of made that press list in Chicago, it's just been an upward roller coaster since, between just having Every Movie Has a Lesson still be great, meeting other critics and starting a second critics organization in the city, finding other places to get published like Film Obsessive and 25 Wild before it. And just, now it's like, it's Hollywood Critics Association, it's Critics Choice Association, it's getting approved on Rotten Tomatoes, which again, if you would have told me all of that was going to happen when I found my Facebook, friends in 2009, where they're like, you should write again. I'm like, yeah, man, but there's nothing to it. But if you would have told me then that any of that would be possible, I would have told you were crazy. And now it's been, I don't know, 6 years of Rotten Tomatoes, and just it's all over the place. It's crazy that's the second night gig thing that I say I get to do.
Nice.
It's nuts.
No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. One question I have for you right off the top, just based on what you were talking about. If you remember, once you did get back into the Facebook and started the blog, what was the first film that you did a critique of, if you can remember?
Yeah. Summer 2010, it was Iron Man 3. I came back Iron Man 2, excuse me. It was Iron Man 2. And then it was like Letters to Juliet and the Robin Hood that Ridley Scott did. That was like kind of like the first bunch in May of 2010.
Nice.
Was that the one Russell Crowe? Was that Russell Crowe's Robin Hood?
Yeah, that was Russell Crowe.
Oscar Isaac in there. Yeah. Mark Strong.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the questions I got for you is,
sure,
given how things are in today's society with Rotten Tomatoes in general, what do you think of the current state of film criticism today? Since how everything's so very cynical and very tribal.
It is. And I don't know if that's and I try to avoid that. And it's a weird place to kind of be, where I find Chicago's a big pond. So I meet, I'm in that press credential group with Richard Roper, with Brian Tallarico from RogerEbert.com, Angelica J. Bastien from RogerEbert.com, Chaz Ebert herself, the widow of Roger, and Michael Phillips. There's all those kind of folks here, and it's a big and competitive pond. And I get that there's the tribalism I see is in a couple of places. One, it's traditional journalism versus DIY, and I count as DIY. Like I feel like I'm a good writer, and I do well. I try to really think with mechanics, write in the third person. I'm not I, me, my. I'm not a clickbait kind of guy. I really try to tone down the hyperbole, but I know all of that sells. And so for the DIY folks, who are either the YouTube folks, the bloggers, the podcasters, that are the more unprofessional people, that's a way to get in. Just put your voice out there. You're giving your voice. A lot of people come to you for personality, where that is a lot of the reasons why people get good audiences and can do what they do, or at least kind of raised to a level that they can get to that place, is kind of being themselves, first person and all. But you have a lot of folks that are, the diehards in really good positions, or the ones that are, paid critics and journalists who are journalism majors and former writers, where there's no I, me, and my. There's, third person. It's super duper research. It's, their work is handled by editors, and you can tell, versus the willy-nilly person who just throws on a camera on YouTube. So there's that tribalism I see between the traditionally professionally trained and then the DIY crowd. And there's a huge pond in that, or there's a huge level to that pond in the DIY. Well, you got some folks like me who've, worked on some sites to be edited enough that my craft is solid, or at least I feel like it's solid, where I can probably go right anywhere I take a shot to try, versus a lot of people. And I run into a lot of people, especially being a leader of a film critics group, where we recruit and find a lot of young people to kind of come in and climb that ladder that I've climbed before. And you see a lot of people where the unrefinement's really clear, but the personalities of $1 zillion, where that's kind of fun. But at the same time, personality is only going to get you so far. At some point, expertise has to show up. So that's the clash that's there with the tribalism, where the traditional people think all of us DIYers are invading on their turf and stealing some bylines, or getting better assignments, or saying that maybe just because of volume and the stuff we see to a crazy level, like all those letterbox people who see 700,000 movies a year, are they better than the creme de la creme studied experts that are out there? Where's the line between impact there? Who are people really reading? And that tribalism is starting to carry over into audiences, because audiences have one big opinion about it, and then they'll come to Rotten Tomatoes and see the critical opinion about it. But that critical opinion, ever since Rotten Tomatoes opened their boundaries up a little bit more wider 3-4 years ago, it's not just the pro of the pros, but now you've got all the people who have a big enough audience that Rotten Tomatoes is like, you're a valuable enough site to be included in our aggregate. So now you've got, and that's why you kind of still see top critics versus regular critics, and there's even tribalism there. So it's really tricky in terms of that tribalism of professionalism, and where are the clicks at, where are the people at. And some of that thunder that I can talk about was kind of stolen by that article that came out last week from The Guardian. Who needs film critics anymore? Because the DIY folks, and then the influencers, the people who are just personalities that the studio puts out there and kind of pay to promote. Are you an entertainment journalist? Are you a promoter? Or are you a film critic? And there's all this dissemination. And now that the strikes are here, all the people, there was like this hiccup in the writers community of like, should we be on strike too? And I was that guy who was like, I check my wallet and go, oh, look, I'm not an actor. Oh, look, I'm not a writer. I can do what the hell I want. I'm an independent voice. If you think you are, but I laughed at the little epiphanies that people had of like, if you even think that you're kind of part of the machine, so to speak, maybe you're doing it wrong because you shouldn't be, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's that sliding scale of, I don't know, perception of professionalism that is out there, where it's schoolyard stuff. It's cafeteria seats. It's weird. It can get weird in a hurry.
With regard to the strike, because that brings up a very, very valid point. Some of the YouTubers that I subscribe to and see some of their content, that's one of the things. They're like, well, I'm a member of SAG. And I'm thinking like, okay, that's cool. But is that almost like a conflict of interest if you're trying to sell yourself as a critic?
I think so. And that is part of the professionalism. I think you've got that old school classic critics is the ones where, you hear about those food critics back in the, I'll compare it to food critics. You hear about those food critics back in the day who the restaurants didn't know who they were. They were mystery people. They don't put their faces next to their bylines in the newspaper, where any customer that can come in that restaurant could be the guy that reviews your food, your restaurant. Film critics aren't like that. As soon as Roger Ebert and Cisco put themselves on TV and where everyone knows it's them. And that and all that stuff is in closed screenings anyway. It's not like they're going out to the multiplex and watching movies next to the masses. But once that line was kind of crossed between, like you said, conflict of interest. What are you here for? What are you not here for? Because if you're there because a product or a piece or a studio put you there, then you're not an independent voice. Or if you are an actor and you're trying to, promote a thing or a film or be a part of the business that's beyond the secondary part, that is a conflict of interest. And we're getting that blurred line for sure. It's weird.
Okay. Before we, I don't want to necessarily dominate the conversation, me and GQ. Fallen, do you or Dido have anything you would like to ask Don? Jump in.
I think to kind of piggyback off the conflict of interest thing. Now, I know it's been like, discussion of people who, some people who are influencers and so forth have, quote unquote, been getting offers from studios because people, whatever. And then it's crossing that line and being what they call scabs and all that or whatever. So it's just like, and I understand that completely because again, it's just like one of those things where it's just like, okay, is it worth it? Or you basically going to blackball yourself, the whole time. But it's just like, it's like where, like as a content creator, and it's like obviously, in the sense that you're kind of taking up that mantle of being a voice of the average person, without having to have to watch out, for the big machine with the shareholders and shit. So it's just like in that context, like how, like at what point, like, do you feel like that kind of became something that inherently became part of your motive to do what you do now?
That's a great question because in the years I've been doing this, and this is 13 years in of doing just starting the blog. I think the change of mediums became a thing because when I was a kid and when I was coming up doing this, or even just in the college part, it was written only. And even written, even online written, you didn't have the videos and the YouTube and the TikTok and even the Vine and the stuff that came before it to kind of put a face and a voice out there. You had Siskel and Ebert on TV, you had Roper and people on TV, and that was kind of it. And that was like A+ top shelf, liquor level kind of people. Where now that anybody can put a podcast studio in their basement, put a camera on their computer and come talk to you about stuff. Now you're Ratatouille land where everybody's a critic. And by that point, you're not just putting the knowledge and the critiques on the work out there, you're also selling a brand, a personality. I mean, oh shoot, I got the Every Movie Has a Lesson t-shirt on for tonight. You know, at what point are you, you're right, at what point do you have to build a brand, build an audience, build a following, but at the same time build a body of work? A friend of mine that I can really use as a very good comparison, I don't know if you guys know his work, Emmanuel Noisette.
Yes,
Eman's
E-Man.
movie reviews
Oh
on
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah,
E-Man.
That guy, he's a Chicago local just like me. We both run and work in the same critics group and all that. And watching his ascent the last bunch of years here is meteoric, and it's incredible. Where he and I started in the same place, where it's just written, just trying to get out there. But he had an eye for, not it's just like, hey, YouTube's my thing. I'm the gift of gab. I'm a talker. He's a strong writer, but his talk, his camera work is second to none.
Okay.
And at least in my peers, and once he kind of got on the recast T'Challa stuff, the rocket's been on his back. And now that he's where he is, where he's in Critics' Choice like me, he's in the top level organization that's national and whatnot, and he got there because of just obviously side audience size, but that side audience more than anything is built on his topics, his entertainment journalism, his editorials, his and I don't want to say influencer stuff, but I know he looks like he rides a lot of Marvel's back and all that. But that's just him being a content creator. Yeah. And he found that that's kind of where that's where his draw is. That's where his gets are. And if he can let the critic stuff come along the way and give him professional credit at the same time that he gets content creator love and reputation, he's that guy right now to me that is doing the best of both worlds, where he puts the work in and has a veritable site to be a professional critic, but then he has all of the influence. I don't want to say influencer because I don't think he's that guy. I don't think Marvel puts him up to some things, but Marvel invites all of us to that stuff at some point. Right. So, well, if you get to a good level, but that guy's climbed the ladder where he is a personality and a brand as much as he is his body of work. And I think that's the place where not just guys like E-Man, but even like the Patrick Willems on YouTube and stuff like that, where you could tell that guy is a critic in a YouTuber's body, where I think that's where the rest of us are probably finding ourselves currently chasing is, how can I get my body of work to stand out without getting on camera and getting out there to the people? Can I just be that little expert that types on my little computer and does all my really great stuff? No, you probably got to put yourself out there. Yeah. This can't be a great text. Yeah. You got to be multimedia. So that's the place that it's going to. And then by doing so, you kind of find those, how do I say it? You find those voice for radio kind of people, where there's some people who just can't get on a camera and do this at all. Yeah. They're stud. Yeah. They're stud writers, and they're brilliant minds, and they're smart as a whip.
But stick a camera in their face.
Yeah, or even just a mic. Don't even worry about the camera. You bring somebody on a podcast and or a live reaction show, and they're like, "Well, I'm still processing the film, and I don't know what to think about it." Well, why would we put the mic in front of you? So, be quick, be ready, always on. So, yeah, a guy like E-Man is one of the best in the biz at that. And I look at what he does, and I go, one, I don't have time to get on and do the layers that he does with YouTube and whatnot. But I'm watching folks do that, and he's on to something. But when this strike stuff came out, him and I talked, where I'm like, he knew straight away, I'm not a scab, I'm not crossing lines. I've always kept myself independent. It just looks like I'm an influencer because I have influence on my own content and my own creations. I'm like, that's the thing then. If your content you're creating and your influence is on your stuff and not the stuff somebody else gives to you to put out there, you're your own man. And that's, I think, a place that a lot of us need to do better at being, at least in my profession, side hustle, whatever we're supposed to call this.
Okay. Yeah. So one question I got for you for sure. Dido, do you have anything yet? Do you have anything?
Oh, yeah, sure. When it comes to critics nowadays, in effect, you've been in there 13 years, and you've been, I would assume, a lifelong movie fan. Yeah. Do you think, you and I are around the same age, and I used to grow up watching a lot of, Siskel and Ebert. I used to look at Entertainment Tonight before Entertainment Tonight turned into a stupid, gossip show or what have you, when it was just about Hollywood news. But do you think today's age, when it comes to critics, not just necessarily the ones who are YouTube influencers, but all critics, that they tend to just not like movies anymore? Because it feels like nobody likes anything.
I know. I feel bad about that, and I think that's the weird thing of like, yeah, the delineator I see in that is how do they go about their work and how do they go about their review, and that's kind of how I separate people in terms of like the attitudes that you're talking about, because I I think we all know this. Bad news sells, clicks sell, hyperbole sells like crazy. Because when we come out of screenings and the PR departments that are representing the studios are there asking us with a little notebook, what you think of the movie, they're expecting one of those classic overdone pull quotes of like, oh, it's best movie since blah blah blah, or oh my gosh, greatest thing of the summer. Like we have this weird cultural moment right now where everything's the best fucking thing ever, everything's the worst fucking thing ever, and like there's people have forgotten that there's a whole bunch of nuance in between that's just 3 stars out of 5, 2 stars out of 5. Like not everything has to be treasure or trash, but treasure and trash sell the most. So if you
Yeah.
can come out, if you're going to bring that hater voice and just and burn something to the ground because it gets you clicks and it gets you noticed, that's where some people are like, ooh, I got attention, so I'm going to keep doing that. Or if you're the best fucking thing ever person and everything's great, everything's amazing, I'm going to fanboy everything up, and that gets you clicks because of the other end of hyperbole. That's where some people get to. But if you do that, great, but then someone's going to call you to the mat for your consistency because something's going to come around that you don't think is the greatest thing ever, the worst fucking thing ever, and they're going to call you to the mat on it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those, maybe it's the optimist in me. I see more good movies a year than bad movies a year because I feel like there's enough layers and enough steps in the process in the business that it doesn't make it to the screen. Even it doesn't even make it to the VOD streaming screen unless it made it out with a little bit of appeal or quality, or it would have got shut down before it even got here. So like if on my site or on my letterbox, the highest bar is 3 stars. I don't do halves where it's just I'm a bell curve, the ones, the twos, the threes are the tallest, fours and fives are special.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Okay.
think people kind of get in this rut or get in this place where there's some herd mentality, where I know I see a lot of critics who sound the same and all of a sudden will talk to each other enough to almost still sound the same. And I can't professionally do that. Like I don't read anybody's review on something I've seen till I finish writing my own because I don't want to be influenced by it. I don't want to sound like them. I don't want to be accused of stealing an idea. I don't want to. Same thing with not seeing a trailer before the movie. I'm coming in with the lowest expectations I can manifest for myself. But you're always going to have expectations. You read enough about a movie that little notes are there, but all that. But if I can have less of that cloud and jade my judgment, good or bad. And then the other tip I got where for myself is sleep on it. Don't come on. This is another term from E-Man, my guy, is he has this term. I don't know if he brings it up on his show. He calls it fanlexia, where he's like, when you come out of a movie and the hype is just still buzzing you, don't write a review, don't get on YouTube, don't get on TikTok, sleep on it, come back, and maybe it's not the worst thing ever, and maybe it's not the greatest thing ever, but you've got some nuance in between, and you sound a little smarter when you do that. So, but you're right. There is a disconnect between audiences and critics because I think the loudest critics out there, the ones with the biggest voices and the biggest bylines, are kind of are kind of a generational curmudgeon. I think that old white men thing is out there for real. When you look at some of the people who are just always hating on a movie, it's either the clickbait person or it's the old curmudgeon. And for some reason, those two are rooting on shaking the same pom poms, and it's weird to see. So, or it's the societal place where we're in cancel culture right now, where heaven forbid one little thing bust one little rule of somebody's rule book, and then an entire demographic of film Twitter is just going to hate on you, a movie, or it. And I just can't do that. So I cancel no one in anything. I'm there for the movie. If Kevin Spacey makes a great movie tomorrow, if Bill Cosby makes a great movie tomorrow, I'm there for the movie. I don't care.
Wow. Okay. That's brave.
I'm that guy. I'm that guy because at least that's consistent versus I'm going to pick and choose who I hate and who I cancel. When I see way too many people do that versus a movie being a full thing, like a movie is a full project more than just the 2 or 3 stars that get the headlines enough to get canceled. So like I'm going to watch Baby Driver, for example, not just because Kevin Spacey's in it, because somebody else is doing good work. Edgar Wright's doing good work. The stuntman's doing good work. It's too big of a team thing. That, and if the veil was really pulled off, there's fewer choir boys than there are sinners in Hollywood. Where if
man.
you wanted to,
Man.
if you're gonna cancel people with consistency, we wouldn't have shit to watch anymore.
You ain't never lied. My goodness.
Absolutely.
So that's why I
No.
can't. That's why I can't cancel.
I got you.
And why I can't be. Why I will not. Even when I write a 1-star review, I'm not out for clickbait and hater level volume and adjectives and language. I'm going to critique it. I'm going to put some lines in some places there. And at the same time, when I gush over something with 5 stars, I'm not trying to do best thing ever and go nuts about it with fireworks behind me.
Right.
You got to have some nuance in some places. And those nuances are called 2, 3, and 4 stars and not 1 and not 5. So,
Right.
yeah.
So what I was going to ask you is, what is it that you think casual movie fans and or the general audience get most wrong about their opinions of film critics themselves?
That we're not. I mean, the cliche answer is that we're not fans too. When Avengers Infinity War came in, we got a press screening and there is this weird decorum when it's just us in a room watching a movie. There's the communal experience is completely gone. Yes, there's other people in the room, but they're either taking notes or they're just guarded and shielded with what they're trying to watch and do. But so like I think when you do that too long, you forget how to be a fan, or you forget that that movies are sometimes built for audiences that might not match you. So know that when you critique something that, hey, this, and I don't like this term and I won't write this term, but like you have those critics that kind of half-ass that, but to say, well, the film didn't work for me. Don't say that. Just say why the film doesn't work. Don't do for me. As soon as you're doing that, now it's about you and not about the movie. And you got a whole room of people who don't work for me. And because we've gotten to a place where the personalities are writing and selling these things with the brands and the videos and whatnot, as much as the work you do. So it's you won't hear me write or say it didn't work for me. But some of that is forgetting to be a fan. Like when we here, I'll call my guy E-Man out again. When people started to get dusted in Infinity War, he stood up in his seat. No, and like he was in a communal experience. But no joke, there were people. We're at a press screening for Infinity War. It's ultra top secret. We're embargoed. We're not supposed to tell people we're even there, but we're watching that monumental movie. People start to turn to dust, and E-Man, our guy, stands up and goes, "No!" Especially when it was Chadwick.
Yeah.
But he got shamed back in his seat by like the sneering crowd, like, "Sit down." I'm like, dude, let him watch the movie. Like, let it laugh if something's funny, react if something's good, cry if something hits you. Don't be Anton Ego from Ratatouille. Like, let it come hit you. Like, so I think there's some critics out there that just put that hat on, put that tie on, put those glasses on, and forget to be a fan. And then there's people who run, but there's, if you can find them, there are people who run with heart, but run with heart that is fair, run with heart that is balanced enough to kind of say, even if they do say it didn't work for me, they're at least give you right reasons why, and grant that, hey, it might not be for me, but I hope it's for somebody else. There's not that, rather than just make it about them.
Okay. So
I think that's a place that people need to get to. I think the other thing people get wrong about critics and Rotten Tomatoes and all that is the math. That is not a spelling test. It's just an average of it's the math part. Like if they see an 85 on Rotten Tomatoes, oh, that must mean it's 85% superior, like some spelling test. But no. It's just 85% of critics said it was kind of sort of better than 50%, or 50% like letter grade kind of stuff.
Right.
So I wish people would just know the math in the aggregate. I point a lot of people, even though I'm not on it, I point a lot of people to Metacritic. Like if you need that honest to goodness, like sort of quality score, go to Metacritic, where their aggregate is out of 100. And it's about like, if I gave it 4, or somebody gave it 3, so that now we're talking 60s and 75s and whatnot. Like they're doing the math of an average versus just how many reviews are positive, not necessarily how many of them are 5 stars, how many of them are 3 stars, how many are 4 stars, like how much positive are talking about.
Okay.
I think a lot of audiences get the math wrong on Rotten Tomatoes and then think, well, this 94% movie didn't, suck for me. Why all these critics are crazy? It's supposed to be 94% awesome. No. It's just 94% of people thought it was better than average. That's it.
Okay.
All right. Well, I got a very, very pertinent question in my mind. I think it's pertinent, but people are gonna have to wait because we're gonna send a message over to our patrons real quick, and then we'll come back right after that.
All right.
With this question. The entire Culture Junkies crew would like to thank you for tuning into our programming. We hope you are enjoying our content as much as we enjoy making it. One thing that helps us continue bringing you our unique content is viewer support. By visiting the Culture Junkies Patreon page, you will have the opportunity to select the support level that works best for you. Not only will your support help keep the Culture Junkie Nation growing, but you will make yourself eligible to receive patron-exclusive swag. Please take a moment to consider supporting us and join the ranks of the supporters you see listed on the screen. We would like to also give a special shout out to our Culture Junkies level and above patrons: DeMarcus Smith, Fab Nerd Life, Nanette, The Other Steve, and Black Crowned Knight. Remember, for as little as $1 a month, you can support a Culture Junkie. Thank you. All right, I want to say thanks to all of our patrons. Appreciate all you guys' support. But back to what we were saying, with regard to what you were just saying, honestly, about the almost, I want to hate to call it this, but a sterilized audience watching a film like Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself going back and watching it with just a regular audience? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is with regards to that regular audience. When you're sitting there, let's say you just go out to a movie with the family, how hard is it for you to turn off the critic part of the brain?
Great.
Just enjoy the film for whatever
two
it
good
is.
questions. Yeah.
Great question.
For the first one, occupational hazard, because of the number of things out there that I'm either assigned to cover or there is to cover, I don't get out very often to like see a movie. I don't get a lot of rewatches, at least not in the theater. And the rewatches I get come maybe afterwards when it makes it on DVD, or it's award season. We're all supposed to kind of do our homework and bone up on movies we missed. But no, I don't get out to the communal movies like for a rewatch. I wish, or if I see a family, maybe it's with the family, where I see a family movie for critics like early, then I'm like, hey kids, we need to go see Little Mermaid or whatever. And I'll go back with my kids. And then for me, it's comfort, because at least for those moments, it is nice to turn it off. Especially if it's a rewatch, because then all that work is done and I can put it away, which is great. But at home, we don't get to the theater a lot around here just because of busy schedules and kids and whatnot. But like around here, it's my kids are starting to pick up on what dad does, like, because every time I go out to a movie and it's two times a week or more, I miss a bedtime, and I'm that dad who misses where'd daddy go? Always at a movie again, like I can do that. My kids are salty as can be. So but my oldest is 10 and my youngest is 8, and they're starting to pick up on, well dad does this for I make no money doing it, but he does this to write on here and get to here and do all this. And my daughter's starting to look over my shoulder when I write and stuff like that, and starting to kind of pick up on that. But like, so when we watch movies at home, and movie with daddy is totally the thing to do. So like, but I'm not one of those like pusher dads where like, hold on kids, let me go get my Criterion DVDs. We need to watch the 400 Blows. Like, I'm not that dad at all. If you want to watch the 6% Yours, Mine, and Ours on Amazon, kids have fun. So I find it very easy, I must say, to turn off the critic brain when I'm in a communal place or I'm with the family, because I didn't forget how to be a fan. Like other people, like I'm kind of preaching out there a little bit with it. Cool. It's a blast. Yeah. And now I'll still push, like, hey, like, are you really gonna watch Incredibles 2 for the 15th time, son? How about this movie?
Can we watch something else?
It's not bad. Yeah, can we watch something else? So I'll push some stuff, and the poster in that my not a poster, but my daughter's like, I every time I suggest something that goes over well, I lean over to them, I look them dead in the eye, I'm like, hey, dad doesn't pick bad movies, okay?
There you go.
And they're like, okay, like they're starting to pick up on it, where they start to repeat that back to me, like, dad, you didn't pick a bad movie. I'm like, I told you. So yeah, so at some point, when I can't wait for them to be teens, because then we're gonna bust balls and have a good time. But
yeah, for sure.
I bet.
Now, as a dad, though, I gotta say one thing. I'll advertise for Entertainment Weekly. Entertainment Weekly, I do I'm still a teacher, where I bring that brain to it a little bit, where they have this really good article, and I bookmarked it for years. It's called Entertainment Weekly did an article called "The 55 Essential Movies a Kid Should Watch Before They Turn 13." And I took that list, and other people have, and they made it like a checklist or a list you can clone on Letterboxd. And I do religiously go back to that and go, hey, is there something I can pull out of the hat right now from this list that's some quality I can pepper in with Yours, Mine, and Ours and the Pacifiers and all the Disney Plus stuff, So I do head there often to like get something good or check a box,
Okay. So to actually piggyback off of the question from before, and you kind of alluded to it. Do film critics, like, because we know that what Dido said about film critics who kind of review things and they seemingly hate everything and they can't turn off their critic brain and just kind of can't remember how to be a fan. Do they choose the movies that they get assigned to? Like, is it like an open thing where they say, oh well, hey, go and see this movie, or I want to go see this movie, or do their editors say, hey, no, I need you to go and review this, even though it's not in your bag, just review it? Because I find that a lot of these reviews come from critics that it seems like it's just, take the superhero movie genre in general, right? They're just bashing these films, and it's because they don't like superhero films in general. If you don't like them in general, what are you going to go see the movie for? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I agree. I find that there's two things going on there. One is personal, one's professional. I think the professional part is, and I think every workplace is different. I think you've got some publications or job sites, whatever you want to call it, where they're assigned, they're pushed. Hey, you're our guy. You got to go assign this. It depends on how open that writer's room is or that editing room is with your employer, so to speak. So I don't know how. It depends on how that outlet works and all that. For example, my outlet, Film Obsessive, we have a team of about 5-6 steady critics, and I'm one of the editors. I'm actually the content supervisor there, where I'm kind of in charge of assignments and scheduling, where I kind of post the calendar of everything that's there, and I kind of just throw it out there and say who wants what. And every now and then I'll kind of play big fish and hey, Big Papa's going to take Blue Beetle. All right. I'll flex the muscle every now and then. Like, hey, the Rotten Tomatoes guy is going to take the one thing here. But more often than not lately, I don't mind if it's something that someone else is super passionate about, like they want it real bad. I'll let them have it. I can get my byline on my own site as much as I can get it on Film Obsessive. Like, my bread is buttered. I'm good to go. And I at my outlet, I got to send my props out to J. Paul Johnson, our site lead. There is find the right writer for the right assignment. And I don't know how many publications do that, because you're right. If you're going to go to every comic book movie and bash it, here's a word you need to learn how to do: abstain. Just step out and go, you know what? This one's not for me. Or I'm not the best person to review this film. I abstain a zillion times. I'm not a horror guy. I didn't watch them a lot growing up. My expertise and my knowledge isn't there. I let other people review those. Like I abstain, and I've told PR people no, like hey Don, can you watch this movie? I'm like, not my cup of tea. I don't think you'll get a great, and I'll be super honest, like I don't think you'll get a good review from me, because it's just not my wheelhouse. I think there's better people, and I'll even refer them to 3 or 4 other people who are like, you know what though, I know this other critic who's really good at this sort of thing. Try them, especially because they're freelancing and trying to get themselves out there. The other thing is, I'm also not a crusher of souls, where some of these smaller movies that maybe don't get a lot of attention, where a Rotten Tomatoes critic like me can influence the score, so to speak. Like, and I take that responsibility seriously. Like, if I'm going to give something a positive review that can really move the meter, like on a movie like Barbie, where there's 300 reviews, I'm a drop in a bucket. But for a small indie film that's really trying, and they come to me with a pitch to watch a film, they're like, hey, try this out. We'd love to hear what you think. Love to get your score on Rotten Tomatoes. But when there's only maybe 12, 13, 6 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, my positive or my negative can hurt or harm a film. And I know that. So 1, be fair. 2, don't bash it. And every now and then I still will abstain. I'll watch a movie. I'll know I'm going to give it a negative review. And I'm not a hitman artist where I'm going to burn something to the ground, but I'll go back to that PR person and say, hey, I watched it. I'm not going to give it a positive. If I write this up, I'm not going to give it a positive review. And I know that your numbers are low and there's not a lot of people out there. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to step back and be like, hey, I'm going to let this one go. And I know there's other, and I don't use the it's not for me thing, but I do the, I don't want to hurt your efforts and your attempts to find your audience, especially for these little films that are just trying to get out there. So I try to be that guy, where that's the magic word to me that not a lot of people do, is abstain. Don't, if you know you hate it, or you're going to have a weird preconceived bias, step back and let somebody else do it. There's enough of us out there. Give that spot to somebody else who can give it a good voice. And it's not necessarily to be a positive voice, but maybe be the better voice. Another example I'll put out there is Blonde. Blonde was obviously super controversial last fall during the award season, and I wrote a phenomenal review for it. At least I like my review for it. But at our publication, I knew at that spot, hey, that should be a woman's voice. And even if I disagree with her take on that movie, that's the perspective that needs to be heard more than one more white guy. So I professionally abstain and personally abstain. Now, not enough people do that, and some of that for me is a little bit of integrity, and then some of that is also just I'm a working father of two where I can't see 6 things a week. I can't write 6 things a week, so I 2, 3 top. So I gotta choose my spots.
All right. So we're getting close to the power is yours, so we're getting ready to turn it over to people. We already had actually a couple of questions in the chat earlier. I remember what they were. The other Steve, I saw what you said, so I'll make sure. I'll remember to ask him that, right off the rip. So all right, so the power is yours, people. Let's talk about what you guys want to talk about. The power is yours. All right, so technically, Wolverine Solid X did ask this first, like earlier in the show. He wants to know, what was your favorite film of all time?
My favorite film of all time.
Yes.
It's easy. But I'll do a long answer just to be long-winded. Number one movie of all time is Casablanca from 1942.
Wow,
I think
really?
It's got everything. Okay. It is. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer where I came up in the 80s and 90s, but that's the one for me. I do this thing that I try to separate professionally is the difference between favorite and best. To me, they're different things. And you almost have to rate them different too, where you've got some of those movies that I recognize are some of the best of the best. Like here's the rule I always do: Schindler's List and Anaconda. Schindler's List is a no doubt slam dunk 5-star watershed movie, but I'll never watch it again. It's too hard. It's too rough. It's just not an entertaining escapist thing. But then there's something like Anaconda, and I'm one of those people who like fully buys into the idea of guilty pleasure.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Anaconda, we're talking Ice Cube,
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez.
That
Oh man,
and fun to watch.
And I think Danny Trejo was in it too.
I'm not your bloody poodle.
Yeah. But there's the line. Yeah. But no, for me, that's a favorite. Like I will 5-star sit down and stop what I'm doing to watch that film. I know it's horrible, but I love it. and there's 1,000 movies like that there's 1,000 movies on both sides of that. There's 1,000 movies that if you're smart enough to kind of step back or even just do the critic thing and be like, this movie's not very good, but you know what? It gets me and I love it. And then there's 1,000 movies that are of esteem and quality that I'll never watch again. And to me, there's a magic middle where there's some things out there that are favorites and best. Those to me are the really special ones where they get you for the escapism and the love of what you have for the topic, the movie and whatnot. And you also see the quality that it is as a film. And to me, the perfect middle of that is Casablanca. It's got everything, and it's one of the most entertaining movies you can find.
So would you consider The Flash one of those movies that you'll never see again?
That's the never see again for the negative reason of like, oh, I've watched something rough and I don't know if I can go back there again. But I'll go back and like, that's something I'll YouTube. Like I'm going to want YouTube the George Clooney part again. I'm going to YouTube see Nicolas Cage again. Like I'll do the snippets. I'll always watch something again. But no, it's that one can, that landed off of Guilty Pleasure Island.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's all good. So
no, you're fine.
Okay. So the second question, and this is kind of a running gag in our little program because over your shoulder, those of you that maybe be able to see it, Don has a picture of Alex Ross's Superman. So he's obviously a Superman fan, right?
I am.
So
Midwestern cornfield boy. That's my guy.
So and he probably doesn't live too far away from Metropolis, anyway, because Metropolis is actually close. Yeah, he lives very close to Metropolis. So, I am a fan of Man of Steel. I'm an unabashed fan of Man of Steel, even though I didn't like the DCEU in general. I really liked Man of Steel. Everybody in the Junkie Nation gives me crap for it.
Sure do.
So they want to know, what did you think of Man of Steel?
Yeah.
Tastes like Batman.
Man of Steel is a bold interpretation of a character that needed probably a kick in the pants to be a modern thing. Where just that one movie I dig it. It's big, it's bold, it's different.
See,
I think Henry Cavill is a little outmatched where that is Superman from the chin down. You know, after that, he unfortunately has to talk, and you're like, oh, there goes all the charm that he doesn't have. Like he's an awful Clark.
Ooh.
But the movie itself, like to do a different scope of Krypton, to do a bigger and bolder Metropolis, to be a modern version where Lois kind of knows and there's not really a place to hide that secret, and to kind of bring that guy forward. And I think Zack Snyder's got chops where in that movie he doesn't overdo the stuff that Snyder overdoes, where it's a bold, good movie.
See, you're saying everything I love.
But he blows it.
Yes.
But he blows it when you get to Batman v Superman. So,
100%.
like,
yes.
It turns dark. It mopes. You can't pull the Doomsday card on a rookie year Superman. That's a veteran, 10 years down the road, earn that death Superman thing.
Yes.
And he pulled the card to it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All of that. Yes.
For example, right now, Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois in the CW, like
Fantastic.
being a dad Superman.
Yes.
It's great show. I love it.
Fantastic.
That to me that's the best Superman going right now by a long shot.
Oh yeah.
But what I like about it, and you can kind of see if they get that season 4, which I think they can.
Yeah.
If that's the Superman that's been around for 10, 15 years, and he's a father of teenagers, devoted husband, like that's a veteran Superman. He'll earn that Doomsday moment in season 4 that Henry Cavill couldn't dream of owning now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, junkies. We got those questions out of the way. What else do you guys want to ask? Either Don or myself, actually, Gokai Red actually asked, how was my first WWE pay-per-view experience? Because a bunch of us went to, so we went to SummerSlam last weekend, and I have to tell you, I had an absolute blast in person, in Ford Field. Like, it's so easy to get swept up in the emotion of like sing-alongs with like when Cody Rhodes's song hit, like the entire arena was almost like doing an impromptu karaoke session. And it, like, they were literally singing every single lyric, and on every pop, you know, with the whoa, they were all doing it. It was like, it was so easy to get swept up in it. The energy was electric. First of all, I got to give props to Logan Paul, because as a guy, like, literally, I think him and his brother are completely obnoxious YouTube influencers, kind of made their bones kind of like being idiots and jerks online, but he put in the work to be a talented ring worker. And that match with him and Ricochet, the very first match, great stuff. Great stuff. Even on a rewatch, was really good stuff. The worst match of the night, by far, was Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. They should never let them do any pay-per-views ever again. Like, never. They were terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was bad.
How are they terrible? I didn't go. So.
No. Like, if we pulled up Peacock and put on SummerSlam and fast forwarded to the Ronda Rousey Shayna Baszler match, you'd be falling asleep. That thing was so boring. It was like,
usually the ladies are hype, right?
By contrast,
it's the type of match that they gave them. Like, really, it was
what kind of match was it?
It was MMA rules.
It was supposed to be an octagon.
It was supposed to be MMA rules. But how
MMA
you
rules
MMA rules
in WWE? How does that work?
Yeah, right. Because Ronda's like in a submission hold, her ass is reaching for the ropes like that's gonna do something. What? No, it's MMA rules. What are you doing?
Well, it goes back to, and I even said it there at the event, Ken Shamrock was an MMA guy that went to WWE, and it worked because he understood that he's a character, and he can be hurt. He can, there's going to be people that are going to beat him, or, maybe he's going to win this time, or, whatever. It's almost like Ronda Rousey and also Shayna Baszler don't understand that you're characters. You're supposed to be entertaining when you're having this fight. This isn't a real fight as if you're in the actual octagon.
Yeah.
Did Ronda Rousey just think she's in the actual octagon?
No. It wasn't even so much that. No. It's just she just basically, the match they put on was a real MMA style match where if there's times in UFC when you watch UFC that it's really entertaining and there's stand up striking and boxing, and then they take it to the mat, really the technical mat work and everything, and it's you get a submission out of it, whatever. That's great for that because that's what people expect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have that type of
Yeah.
match in the middle of a high flying sports entertainment WWE style pay per view.
It's
Doesn't
too on
work.
the
It
nose.
sucks
Doesn't
all the
work.
oxygen out
So-
of the arena.
Yeah.
This
So
is
basically,
boring.
it went from high energy to
Oh,
low
yeah.
energy.
Yeah, it sucked all
It was
the
so
energy out.
yeah. It was so
Okay.
jarring.
Yeah.
What
All
match was
right.
that on the
The
heels
thing is,
of?
when you
Mhm.
see,
So
I
that-
didn't.
Timing of the show then too, right? Like you just can't put that match in the like where they put it in the card.
No, you can't.
No.
That's like
Like, it's
that's
just
like
something-
slamming on your brakes on the freeway, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's something to when like when you have something where you have to suspend your disbelief and you do something that's too on the nose. It just doesn't work because it's like I mean, the only way I could put it, because again I watched wrestling in the 90s, it was like Brawl for all over again.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's like you're trying to bring realism to something that everybody already knows is not real. It's fine to just let it be not real. It has been what it's been for the past 50 some odd years, just sports entertainment. Let it be that. Legitimacy doesn't always work, and it's like if you do that, you need somebody like a Ken Shamrock that can at least make it an entertaining thing.
Yeah.
Because that match came right after the Battle Royale, which they brought a couple people back or whatever.
Mhm.
And then when that match came, the audience was, hating on it. This is boring, all the usual chants and everything. That match was so oxygen sucking that even Drew McIntyre and
Yes.
Gunther, which was a really good match that
It
followed it,
was.
took time to get
To
the
build
energy back
up.
up because it was just like,
Wow.
dude, people were ready to see that match with them, but
audience
it was
was
just like,
so
oh my god, we
disengaged.
just
So was a whole
man.
stadium silent during
yeah,
that?
Practically.
it was bad. And now
Practically.
I guarantee you on the replay, they're
Oh,
probably
man.
gonna pump some crowd noise in or something
Have
to kind
to.
of fix
Yeah.
that.
You have
But
to.
actually being there, it was like, oh my god, dude, I've never seen 69,000 people
Mhm.
so just
69,000 people.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
69,000 of us in that arena.
Yeah.
So it's 69,000
just so
disappointed
just straight up
souls.
done. Like
Yeah.
I don't even want to see no more of this. Like
So-
go to the next thing.
To your point, I actually did watch the replay the next night because I was watching it with my daughter. I skipped right over that Ronda
Oh,
Rousey
there
match.
you
I
go.
fast forward right past it.
Wow.
It was so bad. But to your point,
Mhm.
Adobe Girl, when
Yes.
you talked about women's matches are usually entertaining,
Yeah, Glow.
the triple threat match with Charlotte Flair, Asuka, and Bianca Belair was hype.
Okay.
It was
Amazing.
hype. It was
Okay.
a good match.
Okay.
It was a good match.
Yeah.
Yep. Back to the chat. Hand
Yeah.
Up Omega asked, and it was a little bit earlier. He's asked, do wrestling critics ever cross paths with film critics? I'm
That'd be
not sure
something.
how that would happen
Yeah.
unless they
Yeah.
went to go see what was it,
Right.
Ready to Rumble?
What you say about me?
There's one
Yeah,
guy.
I don't think that's going to go too well
No.
because typically, like a lot of wrestling critics tend to be like way out there.
Yeah.
You were saying, Don?
There's one crossover guy I know, Lee Metzler. He is a PR guy who does like movie PR. I think he's based in New York and runs his own. I think he just broke off to run his own. He was in Rogers CMK for a while. Now he's doing his own like self-titled PR stuff for independent films. He's a wrestling hawk who kind of covers and writes some of this on his spare time. Where I see him, like he's a Facebook mutual friend of a bunch of people. Where that's a weird, like when I see him for a movie thing, I'll be like, oh, what'd you think of SummerSlam? So we'll cross over some stuff, but like.
Mhm.
When the wrestling critics or the wrestling, I don't know, it's hard to find like a true critic. You find a lot of same thing, entertainment journalists, people who've got a camera and an eye for it, but not really the acumen. Because the Brad Metzlers those guys are, I don't know, they feel bought and paid for now. Or when you see Ariel Helwani doing video work for WWE, now he's bought. He's on the team.
No,
Like,
no, absolutely.
They-
Absolutely.
they put him in the pocket now, you know?
Didn't he used to
Dave Meltzer
do
is
UFC
definitely-
for ESPN?
I think so.
Yeah, could have
Yeah.
sworn he did.
Yeah.
Now he's doing WWE. Wow, didn't know that.
he's doing some video interviews and stuff like where like he's in the pocket now. Like
Yeah.
he's not going to badmouth the
Yeah,
product.
he's
not
a
independent
corporate
now.
shill now.
Yep.
He's a
Go ahead,
corporate
Dada.
shill
I
now.
think you had one.
Couple things out of chat. So, Dadakuji put this in the chat because he wanted to make sure it got asked. He wants to
Alright.
know, you as a fellow kind of an 80s kid like we are,
Mhm.
what's your thoughts on Big Trouble in Little China?
It's weird. Like that movie probably on somebody's chart has not aged well, but it's so much fun. How can you not? I mean, it's just unashamed stuff. Like a movie you could not remake today.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you could
Absolutely.
not.
It would fall. It would either get overhyped, overdone, CGI'd. It'd fall on its face. It'd be too weird for today's crowd. But I don't know. It's like a secret language for us to watch. You know, it's so good. It's
Mhm.
just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and it takes chances. It has balls. Like it has 800,000 original ideas in it that you just don't get today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be watered down. It'd be overpumped to death. It'd be I don't know what it would even look like if you tried to make that today.
I hope they don't. I hope they never do. And
Yeah.
Head of Omega is asking, what did you think of the Dial of Destiny?
Oh, see, I'm half curmudgeon there. Like it's the half of me that's not is it's just nice to be around Harrison Ford, like and being in that character, like that's a treat. But at the same time, they've been ruining that ending for what 35 years since 1989. Like they rode off into the sunset for goodness sakes. At the end of Last Crusade, you ruined the most perfect ending by even